Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Mirror's Edge video walkthrough. This is the first mission. It's entailed release, and I'm going to be going into the menus, upping the sensitivity, and inverting my controller. There is another tip that I recommend you do at the very beginning there, as this is one of the rare games on console where you can actually change your FOV. Which, if you're not too sure what that is, because you've not played PC or you've not come across that term, it's your field of vision or your field of view, and it will enable you to have better heads-up awareness when you're running. And what it does on this game, it actually affects the gameplay a lot, because when you pull the perspective out like that, it speeds up the look of the game. It makes it feel like you're moving faster. So what I did here, guys, is I recorded about the first half of the game without the FOV being adapted, because I didn't know you could do it until somebody told me in one of my live streams, and then the rest of it will be with the adapted FOV, so you can judge it for yourself which you think looks better. Personally, I think it looks way better. But this walkthrough, Mirror's Edge Catalyst is an interesting game. It has no conventional difficulty, but that does not mean that there is not difficulty to be had, because this is a game that is about perfection. It's a game about memorising what the best way is to move through an area, finding those paths, and then performing them with pinpoint precise execution. Of course, this comes in time and with experience, and at the moment, this is the second time I've played the game, so you're not going to see high-level play from me, guys, but I am going to try and give you some tips and tricks that I've come across while playing that made me feel a little bit more successful with the parkour. Additionally, because there is no difficulty, I'm going to spend a lot of time breaking down the design in this game, the way that they've handled the combat, the way that they've implemented encounters, the way that they use the movement, and oftentimes neglect the movement in favour of lesser enjoyable mechanics. We're really going to go into what makes this game tick and how it could be amended to potentially work better, which is an arrogant claim, but it's fun to do considering that we don't know all the behind the scenes stuff. Additionally, I'm going to be talking a little bit about E3 because it's happening right now, and I just got off the Microsoft conference, which was god-awful, but we'll talk about that later. And it'll probably be some discussions about what's happening on the channel and just some tips on Mirror's Edge. So the first thing here, guys, is if you ever see me run up a wall vertically and do nothing, it means I'm trying to do the rotate and jump off the wall without having the move. One of the biggest mistakes this game makes, in my opinion, is that it starts you off without key abilities like the combat roll, without the ability to do the coil, without the ability to run on walls and stuff. It's incredibly limited early on, and I think it's kind of goofy. To me, all those basic abilities should have been unlocked from the get-go so that the people who were good and knowledgeable of how to do good movement could do it from the beginning without having to buy an arbitrary upgrade. But the game doesn't work that way, so unfortunately you're not going to be able to do anything too fancy at the very beginning because you don't have any of the cool modifiers on your movement. But a couple of tips that will make this more streamlined for you. The first one is the runner's vision. People have been asking me a lot on the videos, the red light that shows stuff and highlights areas that you're meant to go, can you turn it off? Because it makes the game look like a tutorial. And you can, guys. It's something that can be toggled with one of the analogs, and it will stop, but my recommendation is to keep it on. Because as much as I'm going to criticise it because I think it's a piece of shit, it is also very useful at times. Because it's a waypoint, and this is a mandatory fight, you cannot skip it, so you have to do the terrible combat and beat this dude up. We're going to talk about the combat in length on the combat sections, but that's just a little punch him a few times and get on with the game kind of moment. But runner's vision. This is a transient waypoint that is a little bit too overzealous and leads to accidents because of its aforementioned overzeal. The problem with it is not the fact that it's complete dogshit, it's just every so often it fucks off. What is the point in a waypoint that every so often completely leaves you hanging? When it's there and when you can see it, it works perfectly fine. It does exactly what it's meant to do, but it gets so excited to show you where the hell it wants you to go every single moment that if there isn't any kind of ledge or any kind of ramp or jump or any signifier that turns into red, you can be completely lost as where it wants you to go. And for some people, that will be great because they won't use it at all. They will use the difficulty of the game as being learning where to go, and they'll find their own paths, they'll find their own routes, and they'll have a ton of fun. But if you're not a person who wants to do that, it can get really frustrating. The biggest issue I have with it is this is a game about being fast. You always want to be moving at top speed, you always want to be pushing that next piece of momentum to get speed back up, and when you're doing this and you have a waypoint that literally drops choices on you without telling you what to do, it can be very jarring, because you're moving as quick as possible, you're doing rapid reactions, rapid decision making, and if you do a wrong choice, dead. Fall. All speed gone. It completely kills the flow of the game. So one of the big learning curves is getting the timing down on all the movements and learning where to go and learning how to understand and read this kind of finicky waypoint. But once you do, you'll have a lot of success. So let's talk about movement itself. You hold the right trigger to put yourself into a sprint. You can also tap it to do like a boost. And of course, the more momentum you have, the faster Faith will move. Every movement that you see has a sweet spot timing on when to jump or when to press the button to command with it. If you do it correctly, you will maintain the highest level of speed. If you don't do it quite so spot on, you generally will do certain animations that are a little bit different, or you'll hitch a little bit, or you won't get full momentum. A little tip that I can give for people who are struggling with keeping momentum and getting it back and building your focus is whenever you come out of any kind of roll, any kind of jump, or any kind of movement like a climb, if while you're doing the animation you let go of the trigger, the moment you recover, press the right trigger, you will combat boost back up to the momentum you previously had. And by intelligently using the trigger and giving that combat boost a tap, you can get yourself back to where you were, which is a really, really good way of keeping that momentum and having the best experience with the game. Because Mirror's Edge is all about movement, and it's all about speed. You cannot do the combat roll here, so all these falls are going to be a little bit disorientating, which is really frustrating, but it's how they wanted the game to be. There is the hold the bumper mechanic. If you hold the bumper on a jump like that, Faith will get extra momentum and jump higher. If you tap it, she will just go over it normally. Something worth knowing. A lot of moments like that, when there is ladders or there is a ledge that's about neck height, you can wall run and jump to it. Sometimes you can get on it really quick, sometimes you can literally jump directly on it, other times she'll mantle. If you do it perfectly, you'll get it where she doesn't mantle, but a lot of the times it can be tricky depending on the heights that you're trying to achieve. So just bear that in mind. And the checkpoints, guys, the checkpoints in this game are surprisingly decent at times, but then at other times they're really confusing. There's only about 3 moments in the game where I think the checkpoints are kind of iffy, and it's unfortunate, but for the most, I don't think you're going to have any issue with them. It's just going to be learning to get the timing, learning to control Faith, because this is a game where it is very easy to blame the game for your mistakes, but I'm going to try and argue a valid point that it's probably you. And I know this because all the mistakes I've made, all the times when I didn't angle it correctly, or my spacing was off, or my timing was bad, or I pressed the wrong button, and there are moments where the detection can fail you, and it does feel like you're being robbed a little bit on pipes, vents, those pipes on the side of the walls that you jump towards and they throw you around corners. Every so often Faith just doesn't grab them, but it's way rarer than the times where you do it incorrectly. And I'm not saying you who's watching, you know, I'm not isolating you, you're the bad one, you're the terrible one, I just mean you in general. This is a game where if you take the time to learn the way the game moves and get good with the buttons and get good with the timing and know exactly how they function, you can do this flawlessly. And there's no excuse to say the game doesn't work, because the game does work, it's just you're not embracing the way it works. And I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass, guys, and tell you that there aren't flawed aspects of the game, because there are. Certain aspects of it are lacking and they need to be criticised. You know, no game is perfect, but I've seen a lot of people who have poorly judged this game by saying that it doesn't work, and it really does. And then when I've watched the gameplay of a lot of these people, you can see that they're not performing correctly. They're not fully grasping the way the momentum works, the way the timing aspects work, how to keep that better speed up and everything. And that's coming from somebody who played the original Mirror's Edge but can't quite remember just how good it was. I remember it being decent for the time, but, you know, needing a little bit more. This game, to me, as just an ignorant, you know, Mirror's Edge Catalyst player, feels like a much more accessible version of the first game. I don't think it's anywhere near as difficult, anywhere near as punishing, and it just seems to flow and work a lot better for people who aren't necessarily, you know, Mirror's Edge gods. So if you're watching this and you're wondering, you know, shall I rent it, shall I check it out? I say give it a go, but you need to be aware that this game is 100% about running. It's not a combat game. Everything that makes it open world is underwhelming, tedious, and just didn't need to exist. This is a game that is almost very similar to a racing game, a simulation racing game. It's all about those perfect lines, it's all about squeezing off those seconds, perfect execution, nailing those jumps, nailing those wall jumps, and just having a great grasp of the fundamental systems that are at play. And if that sounds like your idea of fun, I imagine you'll have a great time with Mirror's Edge Catalyst. If you want a compelling story, if you want good side games, mini games, missions, alternate gameplay, I don't think you're going to find it here, guys, and I can only recommend this as a rental. But if you want to get good, and if you want to invest that time, and you want to keep making those time trials and beating those scores and prove that you're, godly at this game, there's a lot of fun here for that person, but it's a very specific mindset. And if you're wondering how this walkthrough is going to be scripted, I'm not going to show you me running through the city getting to missions because you're going to do a lot of that yourself and I don't want to bore you. This is going to be what you do on the missions and that's all it will be. But that was Release, guys. Hopefully it gave you an idea of what this game is and what to expect of this walkthrough. Thank you very much for watching and you take care now.